Howdy folks, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about this Starfall original number 9 Saber that was weathered by Austin at Astoria Works. So yeah, this is one of those that Nick assembled from parts, kind of with his Elite Crystal Core concept, which I'll show in detail down below. But yeah, the customer wanted it weathered, and he was asking me if I would do it. Since it was still in Nick's hands, I recommended you'd have Nick do it. But he went and sent it to Austin, and I think it's awesome. So we got this, cool cloth wrap, like a muslin, sort of like we would see on the Ray Saber. And then he, Austin just went all over it. So yeah, so anyway, and there's also some really cool heat standing, very subtle on the emitter. I like that. So let's hop down to the table. Let's talk about the electronics. Let's go over some functions. We'll hop back out. I'll throw a blade in it, show off some blade styles, and then we'll wrap it up. So here we have it, the original number 9. I don't have the plaque with me because the customer kept that, but that was one that I etched. But a real nice paint job from Austin at Astoria really sets the Saber off. I had to look at the original pictures because I didn't remember it when it came in. So when the customer sent it to me, I had seen that Austin posted it, but I went back and looked at Nick's. And so a lot of this was that aluminum, and then there was the black anodization on the grip. I think some of these parts may have come from the Infinity line. So to talk about the components, we put in the Phil Guinness or Kalymian Custom Sabers brass soft switches. Up top, we've got a Shtok V4. This is just going to mimic what the blade does. And then how we get to everything is we just unscrew the pommel. And this does have a take on the Elite Crystal Core. This is a little bit more scant than previous ones that Nick has done. In fact, he was questioning me with comments, and then he ended up kind of doing his own thing and ended up cutting out a lot of the work that he had done. But yeah, we've got this interesting brass sleeve with some cool mesh material, obviously the crystal. So on this side, you'll see the crystal. On this, you can see some of the back. The customer did request that we try to light this up, and I was able to do that. And I just have a PLA printed like chassis holder for just to hold the components in place. So we got a Proffie V3. Now it's inverted with the USB toward the blade so that I could get a kill switch in here, because we have a speaker down here, and this is literally as much room as there is. So most of this takes up the crystal core. So for that reason, we've got an 18350, and I put one of my little battery wraps on it, fully removable. And that's pretty much it. There was no room to really, because I don't have the machining tools to do so, to put any onboard tactiles. So all the operation will come in when you put the Saber in. But you do have twist on and twist off. So if you want to see how the accents change or how the crystal changes, you can twist it on. And you'll notice, let me turn this off real quick so we can get the actual lighting here. Each of these 3 blades is independent and does its own thing. Maybe it's kind of washed out. But we've got like purple going in different directions, and then the red in the center, and then we've got a red underneath the crystal. And if we want to just temporarily switch, we can just drop it in there, hit the aux. When the buttons are facing you, left is power, right is aux. And so now we can see we've got a blue crystal, blue and green accent LEDs doing their thing. And then the center one turns to red. I'm not going to go through all of these, but just so we can see a few examples. Of course, we've got our purple crystal. And then these doing a blinking. So these are blue, center is red. No, it's washed out, but. So to fully play with this is we put the pommel on. And this, I actually brought the volume down. Normally on these 28mm speakers from KR Sabers, I can start at 25 and kind of test from there. And this thing was just screaming. So I turned it down a little bit. But yeah, so this takes a 7/8. Let's do that. I'm using my Quantum per usual. And we do have a retention screw. Since this was sent to me from Austin and the customer kind of kept some of the components, I'm just using my Allen key here that fits. So hopefully the customer has all that. Okay, so we got our blade in, and I got a dog below me. We have two options for turning the Saber on. We can twist on, which is a gesture, which will get us into battle mode, or we can hit power for regular mode. So let's do that now. So now if we just clash the Saber, we're just gonna get glancing blows, right? Or if we hit aux, we'll get blaster blocks. But if we want to engage a lockup, we have to hold either aux or power and clash the Saber. So as long as I'm holding that button, I'll stay in that lockup. But I like battle mode because I find it easier to just kind of throw it around. So now I don't have to hold anything. But if I do lightly tap, I'll still get those glancing blows. But if I hit hard enough, I'll engage a lockup, right? You can move it around, but when you pull out of the position, you'll disengage. And again, I'm sorry, I've got a nervous dog right now. And that's true of melt as well. So when we're sideways, or if we're facing down, we'll get drag. Until I pull out. So let's switch fonts here.
Hero's Journey.
Okay. So if we want to do a force effect, we hold power for 2 seconds with the blade on. If we do it completely vertical, if we hold power for 2 seconds, we'll actually start and stop the track, the designated track. So I'll talk about that here in a second. But we can also switch between quote player and force player, and I don't think this font has quotes, so let's back it up.
Infinite, Celestial, Starfall.
Yeah, we'll do it here. Okay, so again, holding power for 2 seconds. In any other orientation other than up or down, we'll do a force effect. And you can see I've animated it to go unstable for as long as the sound plays. Kind of by default, if you're doing this off the FET263 library, it does it like 30 seconds. But I just like to do it when there's an actual force being played. So as I said, if you want to switch between force player and quote player, point the hilt down and hold 2 seconds. And now you can see there's no animation, but it's playing a quote. So that hold power for 2 seconds, like I mentioned, is also a start and stop of the track. Now, when the hilt is pointed up, whether it's on or off, that's how you get the designated track. If you're in the blade off state and you hold it, you'll start track player mode. And track player mode looks to the common folder, and I've put a bunch of tracks in there, and so you can have fun with it, and also so that you can get all of the tracks from any preset that you're on. So let's demonstrate that real quick. Hear that chime? So now as I rotate the Saber, I'm going through the alphabetical order of songs. And if I just want to play, I can hit power or aux. And depending on which button, and if you do a gesture when you do that, the track will then move on to something else. And then we hold power for 2 seconds to turn it off. So yeah, so track player will continue to play other tracks, whether it plays it randomly, sequentially, or plays it in stops. There's a number of things. I'll have a printout that will explain exactly what gestures and button commands that does. But if we just want to do the designated track that I've set up for each preset per Nick's request for these Starfall fonts, then you point the hilt straight up and hold power for 2 seconds. So for this particular preset, which I'm not sure, it's this one. And like I said, you can start and stop it when the blade is on, but only start the designated track. So if I point it up, I can stop it. So there, I've held it for 2 seconds, and now I'm just ready to rip the saber around. So that's force player, track player, quote player, all under one umbrella of holding power for 2 seconds in the on or off state, in the up or down or other position. Again, I'll have a printout if that was too much to cover in one time. But it allows for you to add future fonts that do have quotes, so long as you follow the Proffie kind of configuration and set those font folders up correctly, then you, out of the box, it will play quotes. You just switch between quote player or force player. So yeah. Already demoed that one.
Hero's Journey.
One thing to note about the Starfall font package is that four of the fonts have preons. Now with gesture control, you'll bypass the preon. So if you want to see it happen, you have to press power. So Ruin is one of those examples. So I'll press power. And you see it was just a real quick preon where emitter flared. But if I were to twist on, we won't see that like fire up. It just goes straight into ignition. The newer of the fonts, Legacy, Alliance, and Ascension, all have preons as well. Those are the last three. And those are kind of a little bit more glitchy, but all of them react to the sound. Again, if we do a gesture, we're bypassing that. So not sure if that's one thing you want to learn. So when the Saber is on, if we want to change colors, and I have set these all up per Nick's request, so I'm not going to change it, but we hold aux and tap power, you'll get into color change mode.
Red, orange, red, dark orange.
You'll notice I've got the Kylo voice pack, since this is kind of a Kylo-inspired font, announcing the colors. If you want to get an in-between color, you have to hold power as you rotate. But the moment you let go, you've accepted that. So I find it hard to demonstrate.
Gold, yellow, green.
If you find something you want, press power. I'm going to revert, which is aux.
Revert.
Okay. A note about the colors, all of the chassis colors are independently programmed. So you will only be affecting the on color for the blade. To get into any other color, like if you're setting up a new font or you just want to change everything, you can get into edit mode. And again, I've got a voice pack for every character that I knew who it was from Brian Connor in each font folder. And then I think the default one is just C3PO. So if I didn't know, if it wasn't designed around a character per se, then it's going to use the C3PO font voice pack. So you would do a button command, you'll get into edit mode. And then the way I've ordered each of the blade styles is kind of in logical sequence, also kind of from tip to pommel. So the first blade will be the main blade, the second blade will be the crystal, and then the third, fourth, and fifth will be each of those strips. And I forget which order those strips are, but you can figure that out later. So yeah, there's also a bunch of other free fonts that came with my Proffie on the SD card, but they're not programmed as presets. So you would need edit mode to get in and duplicate a preset and then change the font so that you could have a new one available. If you want to, I also have included my config on the SD card. So if you learn how to program Proffie, you can pull that off the SD card, save it to your computer, rewrite whatever you need to. I've got a template file that you can follow, like I said, that has the main blade, crystal, and the 1, 2, and 3 strips. So you would just paste in whatever blade style that you're working on, and then fill in the blanks for the font and the track, and then you're good to go. You'll need to use Arduino, obviously, but I don't cover all that in this video. plenty on the FET263 or other websites to learn how to do that. But all of the keys for figuring it out are built into my design. So that being said, the only exception to the color change is Cornhorn, which is just a color change direct. So it will flip-flop if you hold aux and tap power between this white silverish blade to a light purple. And I'll hold my arm up so we can get some reference. So you can see it. The crystal itself will also match the color on this particular example, so it's also an exception to the rule. I'm not going to take the core out to show you, but if you did want to see it, you can pull it out, and you'll see that after you've done the color change, the crystal will turn purple as well. So that's the only exception to the rule. Everything else, however, pretty straightforward.
Legacy.
So now we're on one of the last 3 fonts, the newer ones, and again, I'll show that pre-on. Like I said, it was a little glitchy. When the Saber's off, if you hold aux and tap power, you can get a battery level. And again, depending on whose voice pack it is, you'll get a spoken percentage.
Battery level 38%.
So for instance, this one's Luke.
Lions.
Battery level 39%.
Obi-Wan. And then if we hold power and tap aux, we'll get into volume mode.
Enter volume menu, maximum volume.
So if you want to back it off a couple ticks, and then press power or aux,
Exit volume menu.
you've saved that power or that volume level. All right. So when we're ready, we can take the blade out. And one thing I do want to show off real quick. Like I said, the emitter pixels will just mimic what the blade does. So if you choose to put get an aftermarket blade plug with some shine through, you'll get, a lot of bright color. And again, it's just going to mimic what the blade does. So we can take the core out by unscrewing the pommel. We'll just show off a couple more details. So there's our kill switch. I did use a little bit of E6000 to make sure that the Proffie stays seated. So if you want to reprogram or get the SD card out to reprogram it, for the SD, I recommend just getting tweezers. But since it's E6000, if you pull up hard enough, you can pull the glue up. And then what I would recommend is do what you're going to do if you don't have the right cable, but program it. And then when you go to put it back down, just a little dab of E6000 or any other kind of, non-permanent adhesive. Super glue is going to damage the chassis. But one other thing to note when you are programming this, because the way the pommel works is it presses, you can see that inner lip there. That's what presses up against the chassis. So if you're going to set the chassis down, either set it on its side or on its top. If you're on a metal surface, definitely don't put the Shtok Rotary Pixel PCB set on a metal surface because you could accidentally bridge something. So just set it down on the side, and then if you're not on any kind of metal surface, you can set it upright to keep it stable, and then program it, and then cinch it all back together. That being said, I'll hit the kill switch so we can watch the pixels die off. And that's it. So this is the battery that will come. It's an 18350. I'll send you a link if you need to buy more. These 18350s last about 15 to 25 minutes, depending on what's going on with the Saber. So if you want a little bit more action, you can just get a couple of them and then keep them charged. And then when the thing starts acting funny, you can put a new battery in, charge it up, and good to go. So again, that is the Saber. To the client, thanks for your patience. And to everyone else out there, happy Thanksgiving, and may the force be with you.